Celtic Badass of the Week showcases a different badass person of Celtic heritage each week. Those who exemplify the give no shit attitude and come out on top. They may come from our past or our present, but rest assured they come from all walks of life and legend. They are men, women, even old ladies and pirate queens. You don't have to be a muscled-up Celt in a fur kilt swinging a mighty sword. You can just be a 4'11" Welsh woman and suffragette who knows jujitsu. Most of these badasses are all too real. While some may be only legend, badass legends though. The only prerequisite for this title is Celtic blood and badassedness. This week's Celtic badass is William McBryar. Now here's the story of one of the most hardcore heroes of the Wild West. A steel-jawed buffalo soldier who served 20 years in the United States Army, taking on all enemies from Arizona to the Philippines with a Winchester 4440, a Colt Peacemaker, a awesome wide-brimmed hat, and a fully operational weapons-grade mustache. Now this is the story of Lieutenant William McBryar, Wild West gunslinger, Indian fighting cavalryman, Medal of Honor recipient, and one of the first commissioned officers in the history of the United States Army, who happened to be black. Well, half black. William McBryar was born from Rose McBryar, an African American, and a Scottish immigrant father whose name was not recorded in Elizabethtown, North Carolina on the date of his birth, February 14th, 1861. That was just 2 months prior to the Confederate Army being shelled at Fort Sumter. Now, kicking off the American Civil War, he was just an infant during that war. So growing up, his formative years was difficult. The explosive world of the Reconstruction South, and he grew up to attend college in Tennessee. He was an excellent student, spoke fluent Spanish and Latin, but still had trouble finding steady work in his hometown. By 1887, he was living in New York City, and it was around this time that the 25-year-old figured out that it was time for him to try a new life out west. So he enlisted in the United States Army, requesting to be sent to the frontier. They shipped him out to Arizona to join the 10th United States Cavalry, one of the original Buffalo Soldier regiments. Now, Buffalo Soldiers made up the 9th and the 10th Cavalry, and of course the 24th and the 25th Infantry. And they were some of the toughest, most experienced, most seasoned Indian fighters in the United States military. These 4 regiments were comprised entirely of black soldiers with white officers, and possibly because of this, they were typically given some of the most dangerous postings in the West. When Trooper McBryar reported for duty, the 10th Cav had just finished participating in an epic multi-state adventure to hunt down badass Apache leader Geronimo, where they'd braved the harshness of the wilderness and gone toe-to-toe with some of the fiercest horsemen and warriors in the history of North America. Seriously, check out Apache history sometime. This is a group of unmatched horsemen and fighters. A couple of cavalrymen from this time reported that some Apache warriors could hang off the side of their horse mid-gallop without a saddle and fire a dang bow and arrow from underneath the dang horse while it was charging. Now that's some badass shiz right there. I may have to add the Apache to my list of badasses if I can figure out some kind of Celtic link. This was an elite regiment of hardened battle soldiers, and Trooper McBryar was about to make a name for himself as one of the most celebrated and ferocious men to ever serve in the unit. Now, McBryar's first expedition was a mission to hunt down the Apache Kid, a former Apache scout who was now on the run from the U.S. government. And of course, after he killed a couple cavalrymen in a gunfight, that is. Well, we know that now. He didn't even start it. But still, the Apache Kid was dangerous, deadly, and traveling with a group of men that were not to be screwed around with. McBryar was in K Troop of the 10th, and while his unit was not the one that brought in the Apache Kid, McBryar spent the next several months riding with mountain patrols into the Rocky Arizona wilderness, never knowing what kind of trouble he was going to run into. He got into gunfights with Apaches and outlaws, tracked down cattle thieves, settled local disputes, and hunted down pretty much anyone else in the lawless wilds of the West that needed to be arrested, of course. Now all the while braving everything from cougar attacks to dehydration and sunstroke in the sweltering, oppressive Arizona heat. Now he put 400 miles under his horse's hooves, caught his fair share of outlaws, and suffered a serious injury when a horse fell on him once. Now throughout his 4 years in Arizona, he received the score of excellent on all his ratings and was promoted up to sergeant. The action that earned McBryar his Medal of Honor took place in March of 1890. When word came in to Fort Thomas that a band of 5 Apache had ambushed and killed a Mormon traveler and robbed his wagon, K Troop's commander when he heard that somebody was screwing around with the Mormons again, he hopped up right in the middle of his dinner, grabbed his gun belt, and told McBryar to assemble 8 other guys. And the 10-man squad of hard-riding soldiers galloped off to bring these outlaws to justice. Now, riding hard through the Arizona wilderness, K Troop covered 290 miles in just 5 days. Now, tracking the outlaws through steep canyons and across rivers, the men of K Troop finally caught up to the Apache in a rocky, narrow canyon along the Gila River Valley. Taking accurate sniper fire from Winchester rifles, the cavalrymen ducked for whatever they could find and immediately tried to return fire. Now, barking orders like a badass sergeant should, McBryar arranged his men to turn back the excellently planned ambush, and the Apache were steadily driven back, taking cover in a cave along the steepy rocky cliffs, moving through a hail of gunfire from both directions. The tough-as-nails sergeant moved forward, ducking from rock to rock and firing back with his rifle as he approached the entrance to the cave. When McBryar got near the cave, he could see that there was no easy way to take the position without losing a lot of men. The Apache had an excellent defensive position, possibly one they'd already reinforced. Now, charging in was suicide. However, at the same time, the Apache were still putting out accurate fire on the rest of K Troop, who were strung out along the ravine in dangerously exposed positions. So McBryar did one of the most badass cowboy things I've ever heard of. He didn't charge in there like an idiot. He decided he was going to math the pants off these guys. Now he took a good position, drew out his Winchester, and aimed it at the roof of the cave, just inside the entrance. When the large .44-40 caliber round left his rifle, it struck a rock at just the right angle, and that it sent a white-hot, sharp razor shower of rock and bullet fragments ricocheting straight into the enemy firing position. Now he continued to do this, hitting the same spot over and over and over again, until finally Apache, they threw their weapons down in the battle. The 5 outlaws suffered 2 dead and 1 wounded. Now K Troop didn't suffer even a single injury. When commander of the 10th Cavalry, General Benjamin Grierson, heard the story of how this battle was won, he described it as one of the most brilliant affairs of its kind that has occurred in recent years. An excellent example of what promptness and indefatigable exertion may accomplish in the face of almost insurmountable obstacles. Boy, they didn't mess around with the big words back then. Now, Sergeant William McBryar became the first man in the 10th United States Cavalry to ever receive the Medal of Honor. Amazingly, McBryar was just getting started with his career, though. After 4 years in the blistering Arizona heat, he was transferred to Fort Custer, Montana, where he got off the train in the middle of sub-zero blizzard. Transferred to the 25th Infantry Regiment, which was another Buffalo Soldier unit, and made his home there. McBryar was promoted to Quartermaster Sergeant, helped keep order during some of the old Wild West railroad strikes, and eventually shipped off for Cuba to fight in the Spanish-American War. Now, McBryar survived a life-threatening bout with malaria, but not even a deadly tropical disease was going to keep this warrior from fighting on the front lines alongside his men in an epic struggle against the enemy. And he rallied in time to command his men at the Battle of El Caney. Now, while Teddy Roosevelt and the other Buffalo soldiers like Edward L. Baker were fighting for San Juan Hill, McBryar and his 25th Infantry were ordered to take a well-defended fort positioned along the key Spanish outpost at Guantanamo Bay. Now, many of the 25th's officers were sick, so McBryar was given command of H Company's 2nd Platoon and ordered to assault a fortified Spanish blockhouse. where a large number of the enemy had dug in at the top of the imposing hill. There was no problem for McBryar, who led his men up to within 500 yards. He hit the deck and opened up on the enemy. Once he had them pinned down from the front, he then led a smaller group around the blockhouse's flank, driving them up to within 50 yards of the Spaniards and opening fire once again. They waved a white flag as soon as they saw they'd been outmaneuvered. McBryar's position was taking so much crossfire from the other Spanish-controlled blockhouses, though, that he had to ask another company to move up and accept a surrender while he repositioned his men to return fire. For his service and heroism over 10 years of service to the United States military, Sergeant William McBryar was promoted to lieutenant of the newly formed 8th Volunteer Infantry. Now, he was one of the first black officers in the U.S. Volunteers, which was a huge deal back in the 1890s, a time when Jim Crow laws were segregating pretty much everything. When McBryar was inducted into the Fort Leavenworth Hall of Fame in 2009, Command Sergeant Major William Jandro is quoted as saying, "The day an African American puts on the same uniform as everyone else, they know that they have joined the most democratic institution in our nation, where they will rise or fall based on their own merit. All of this was made possible by the persistence and the sacrifice of soldiers like Sergeant Major McBryar." Now, the 8th Volunteers, they were mustered out in 1899, but McBryar, he decided to rejoin the 25th Infantry. He enlisted as a private again. He just wanted to fight. Naturally, this didn't last, though. When he shipped off for the Philippines, he was already a battalion sergeant major. He spent a few years patrolling the harsh, ambush-heavy, unforgiving jungles of Manila Bay during the Philippines War before returning stateside and spending a few years at Fort Leavenworth, not as a prisoner. He was medically discharged at age 44 with rheumatism. A 20-year veteran of the Army, he tried to enlist to fight in World War I too, but at the age of 51, the Army decided he was just a little bit too old. Honestly, I bet this dude had gotten more terrifying and badass with age. Now, Lieutenant William McBryar got married, worked as a watchman at Arlington National Cemetery, taught a course at St. Paul's College in Virginia, passed away of illness in March of 1941 at the age of 80. He'd been born 2 months before the Civil War, passed away 9 months before World War II, and done his country proud in every military engagement that took place in between. A credit to the title Badass. All right.